You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.
Good afternoon, welcome to the Scottish Football Zone, and on this nice and sunny Sunday. Usually it's a quiet Sunday because there's no football on and Scotland's out the World Cup, but as you know by now, and if you don't know, I don't know where you've been. Clarke has resigned as Scotland manager, and we're going to pick the bones out of that story. Today, joined by a full cast member of wonderful pundits, as I say. I don't know what I'm doing here then. So I'm joined by because it's a Sunday. Heidi is here first. Let's introduce the female first on the panel, and then we've got Graham Duffy, Charlie Knox, and Robbie Rance. Robbie Collins. There we go. But I think that the best place to start with this, guys, is maybe to get your reactions and let us know your comments in the chat on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Facebook as well. I think there'll be a lot of disappointing fans, disappointing people watching the show, but I would like to say that Stevie Clarke, good luck for the future. It didn't work out in the end, and stuff. So, and you can't knock the guy. He got us to two Euros back to back in a World Cup. Graham, I'll come to you first. It's quite interesting that we're saying that Stevie Clarke is the most successful manager to date. Yes, but yet he played a bit of negative football at the World Cup. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I think when I woke up this morning and saw it coming through, I was quite surprised. The fact that he'd walked away from a 4-year contract, which was a mental thing anyway, given that before the World Cup started. But I think it's the right call. You know, to be there 7 years, he's done an incredible job. Nobody can take that away from him. To be the first manager to take us to a Euro since 1996, the first time in 2020, to then do it again and then take us to our first World Cup since 1998, he's done an incredible job. He's given us some big nights. You know, that night in Serbia, of course, nobody was there because it was COVID. But that day when Marshall penalty saved from Mitrovic, he's given us that game against Spain. The 2-0 win at Hampden was incredible. I thought Scotland were great in that night. The 2-0 win over Denmark was a great night as well. Obviously, the game Denmark before the World Cup, he's given us some incredible occasions. And nobody can take away what he's done in these 7 years. But getting to 2 Euros in a World Cup, you have to do better. You have to compete. And we've not done that in any of these tournaments. What kind of frustrates me in this tournament is the fact that he said, and the player said before this World Cup started, we've learned lessons for the Euros games. We're not going to be as bad as that. And we've done nothing. Like in the 9 games that we played at tournament football, we won 1 game, a deflected goal against Haiti. It wasn't good enough. But I don't think Steve Clarke should take all the criticism for this. Those players will not be good enough in this tournament. Big players like McTominay, McGinn, Robertson, who are meant to be leaders, have not turned up. They've been really poor as well. But Steve Clarke's legacy, he is going to go down as the best manager we've had for a long, long time. There's no doubt about that. But I think for him and for Scotland, I think it needed a fresh change. It needed something a bit different with new ideas, new philosophies, players that maybe play better for their clubs than they play for their country. So I think overall, it is the right call. I am surprised that he has gone, but I think he's made an entirely right decision for him. And I think that plane ride home is going to be very, very awkward, given the fact he's now no longer head coach.
Heidi, I'll bring you in here as well, give us your reaction to it. But for me, I think it goes much deeper than the manager. I think it goes back to my favourite subject, and Robbie knows what I'm going to say here. Youth development football. We've got no one coming through. Maybe I'm a bit unfair. But Heidi, what about your reaction when you heard the news about Clarke?
I mean, I was kind of no surprised. I think he's had his time with Scotland. We've had good moments, obviously Serbia. We had the beating Spain, Norway, and obviously that Denmark game as well. So he's brought us good moments. Obviously, he's brought us to 3 tournaments, but I think as well his football just wasn't the best. We just didn't see great football through the tournaments. We only won 1 game in the 3 tournaments we've played with Clarke, but I think it was the right call. I think it's the right call for himself as well. So we'll just need to see the next man in the dugout. But yeah, I think it was the right call, and he's done everything he could with Scotland. I think that's how far he could take the team. So I think it's the right call for him as well. So we'll just see who the next man in the dugout will be.
Charlie?
I think it's a correct decision as well. I think, yeah, Steve Clarke's done great stuff with the national team to get us to the tournaments, and that's all good and that's great and stuff like that. But we've actually managed to get to the tournaments. Like, we've not done anything at them. I've said this on many occasions. I think that the squad that we've got right now is more than good enough to at least get to the round of 16. And I think you look at some of the players we've got, like McTominay, Lewis Ferguson, just to name Andy Robertson, just to name a few, that are playing at such a high level. We should be doing a lot more than we are. And I completely agree with what Graham said. It's not all on Steve Clarke. I completely agree with it. I think some of the players have went hiding, some of the players have went missing in these games. But I still feel like that kind of. I feel like Steve Clarke probably has something to do with that as well, because the players aren't playing. Like all these teams that Andy Robertson obviously playing for Liverpool, they're an attacking team. McTominay, Napoli, they'll be on the ball a lot more than most teams. I think these players are used to being on the ball and attacking, and I feel like that's maybe a reason why. I get it. I'm not going to blame Steve Clarke at all, because it isn't just all on him. But I feel like this was the right time. I think I actually massively respect Steve Clarke for to walk away now. Could he easily have just stayed, because he's got a 4-year deal. He'll be making money. He's got a job essentially. So I respect him massively to walk away now when he knows it. He knows himself. It's probably the right time.
Robert, why do we always talk about a rebuild job after these kind of tournaments? Because I mean, I think I've mentioned to you and everybody else watching the show over the last couple of weeks. I mean, you look at Haiti, right? They've actually qualified for the first ever time in the World Cup, right? You look at Canada, you look at USA, right? And they actually started, like, football became big, as it were, maybe about 30 years ago, right? Or maybe 20 years ago, whatever, right? Scotland's been playing football well before that. Yet again, we're still trying to qualify for the knockout stages. Do you not think it's a wee bit embarrassing?
I think you could call it embarrassing. I think when you speak about rebuild now, you're not just talking about rebuild, picking different players in the national team, getting a new manager. And I think you're talking about the SFA having a complete revamp of the members and everybody connected, because even giving Steve Clarke a 4-year contract before the World Cup was an absolute disaster for everybody involved. And we need wholesale changes, and we need it now to try and get the national team and essentially the league back on track. Let's be honest, you don't want to bring it back into club football too early, but you look at the way the league's run, you look at the members in the SFA, the terrible decisions that have been made early years. It's not just time to get a new manager and a fresh start. I'm sure we'll go on and talk about some of the candidates that are already appearing for it, but we need a whole change, the whole SFA and the whole structure. And to bring your point in, Michael, the youth system, we need a whole change. But I just don't get this debate. We had Brazil in our group, we had Morocco in our group, 2 of the top 7. Haiti scored more goals in that same group than we did, and they're a lesser ranked nation than us. So I don't really get this argument that, but we played good teams, we played better teams than us. That we did play better teams than us, but if Haiti can go and score 2 goals against Morocco, then we can do better as well. So there's a lot of change that's needed top to bottom, I think.
Must be a big show, because Reagan's came on. Now I'm on the Keegan Reagan. What's your news about Stevie Clarke resigned from the job? Do you think that the timing was good for man enough for him to say, I've had enough, I'm away?
I think it was at the perfect time, Michael, but I think some people went way over the top. I think he's done a great job. I mean, what Steve Clarke done when Scotland first started, when he joined the job, Scotland were getting 20,000 fans in the stadium. You know, no one was interested. I mean, I remember we've been able to go to the Scotland game and no one was there. But now you're struggling to get a ticket. So I think that just shows you the difference that Steve Clarke has made. I think ultimately as well, Steve Clarke has been too loyal to some of these players. And I think as well, if you look at the Morocco game especially, the fact that we didn't try and have a goal for me is a big bugbear again, because I know that people can say that 2 teams are the top 10 in the world, but you still expect to try and see if you can create much, but we didn't really try and do it. We seem to be pretty happy. I've been trying to get scraps and try and do whatever, because I think at the end of the day, I think Steve Clarke will look back at and he'll probably have a lot of regrets.
Reagan, I sat on the bus on the 21st of March 2019, right on the way home from school, and I watched Scotland lose 3-0 to Kazakhstan away from home. So I completely agree with you. I think we speak a lot about progression and wanting to do better in major tournaments, and I think that's allowed. I think everybody wants to see more progression. I think it's a team that can get out the group stage at major tournaments, but to see the progression that Steve Clarke took the team on from 2019 to now has been tremendous. I mean, he's took us, as you said, for an empty Hampden, empty games, and empty wanting to turn up to an actual fan base that are travelling global and in big numbers as well. So I think you can respect Steve Clarke not just for walking away, but for what he did build in that 7-year period. He was Scotland manager. I mean, it's got to be credited somewhat. And as Graham said, he will go down as one of the best managers we've had, considering the fact we've had about a 20-year wait to go to a major tournament. So, you can be critical, of course, but the progression that he's actually took us on it's got to be credited a bit.
I know people talk about the fact it was a hard group, and yes, it was. We were unlucky to get 2 teams in the top 10. But look at Cape Verde. They had Spain and Uruguay, 2 really good teams as well. And they've managed to get through to the last 32 against Argentina. I know they didn't win a game. They drew 3 games. But they showed fight, they showed desire, they showed hunger. Everything that Scotland have not shown in this tournament. And this is again why I go back to the players. You can't blame Steve Clarke for Grant Hanley in that Morocco game costing us a goal after 70 seconds, or Scott McKenna dawdling on the ball, or mistakes like that. That's not on Steve Clarke. But I do think some of these players have got to take a lot more of the blame. Yes, as I said before, Steve Clarke's done an incredible job in what he's done to taking us to World Cups and Euros. But these players have not been good enough. And I know that somebody made the point about Tom English there. I think a lot of the points Tom English made were valid. I think he was absolutely right. And a lot of what he said with Neil McCann, that debate was very interesting. But I do think some of these players have got to take a look at themselves and say, could they have done more? And I spoke about this weeks ago before the very first game. Don't come back from this World Cup with regrets. And I thought there'd be massive regrets from everybody. They've not competed in this tournament. Again, we have been one of the worst teams at the World Cup. And again, folks said it's the easiest tournament to get into. But on the caveat of that, I will say, even if they'd been 32 teams, we'd have qualified anyway because we won our group. So we deserve to be there. But Michael, you say this all the time, and you're right. There's no point being at the party if you don't compete. We've not competed in this. So I think a lot of these players have let Steve Clarke down as well. And again, on the Steve Clarke, I will say as well, one thing about Steve Clarke as well. I think the way that he handled Connie McLaughlin and Ailey Barber was a disgrace. I didn't agree with that at all. Journalists have got a job to do. After the game, they don't want to be sitting there or standing there with Steve Clarke after that Morocco-Brazil game and asking questions. They don't want to be doing that, but they've got a job to do. And for Steve Clarke to actually treat them with that much disrespect, I thought it was really, really poor. So I do think Steve Clarke does go away from this with a lot of positives, but I also think after this tournament, he should have a lot of regrets as well about the way he's handled himself.
Just come back to your point, Graham. How do about Cape Verde and all the rest of it? Like, first team at a World Cup, look at the group that they ran. I quite enjoyed them actually watching playing football, very attacking minded, right? But first team at a World Cup, qualified for the next stages as well. The shackles were off. Nobody was expecting them to do well. when you look at teams like that, and then when you look at Scotland, it's kind of like night and day, Heidi, and I think we had I think I was having this conversation about maybe about 5 years ago about Scotland, so it's not a new thing.
Nah, I mean, obviously, Scotland just put themselves to shame, and Cape Verde actually turned up and showed they're actually a decent nation. Like, obviously, they didn't win any of their games, but they drew to Spain, like a top class side like Spain, and Uruguay, who are not bad side either. Like, and they drew to Saudi Arabia as well. They've had a great tournament, and they've showed fight and showed passion, whereas Scotland haven't. The players haven't showed anything. Obviously, like, you can say Clarke's to blame, but some of the players have to take responsibility as well, not just Clarke. As much as Clarke's football wasn't the greatest and his substitutions wasn't the best and his tactics, so on and so forth, but the players as well, they need to step up on big stages, and when it matters, we've got players that can do that can step up on the big stage, so the players have to take responsibility as well, not just Clarke. But yeah, I think that it just puts to shame the fact that like the smallest nation in the World Cup is through to around the knockouts of Scotland are, and it's wild.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking you, Robbie, as well. That's what I'm sorry to put Scotland into this bracket, right? But this is the first World Cup that's really been designed for teams like Scotland to have a better chance of qualifying, yet they still kind of like failed. And I get at Graham's point. This is not all on Skibby Clarke. He'll carry the can because he's the manager and he gets big bucks and all the rest of it. But you look up, I think you said this to me before, Robbie, about look at John McGinn, look at McTominay, look at players like that, never turned up.
Aye, well, look at your captain, Andy Robertson, who probably will only play another World Cup for Scotland. Probably no captain Scotland into another major. How much regret's he going to have? Because he's telling us before the tournament, as Graham mentioned earlier, they're going to have a different mindset. They're going to have a positive mindset. They're going to have a go. And they look like it to any fans. I've not seen one fan try to debate that. I've not seen one fan say, "Oh well, we gave it a good go," and or the rest. Everybody's got the same opinion. It wasn't good enough. So these players, and look, I know we'll get into the next manager chat, but it's going to be so interesting to see what the new squad starts looking like with a new manager. I'd expect a few changes. No necessarily, I'm not saying you're going to take out John McGinn and Scott McTominay and all the rest of it. Of course, you're going to keep that last year Stonehold, but you need to start making some changes because some of the squad have looked like for the last 3 major tournaments that they've not cared, and that's a big issue for Scotland. So whoever the next manager's going to be, he's got some pretty big decisions to make already.
I did see people moaning about Maxwell and obviously is it Mulroney, but I did see it broke in the last 10 minutes that the person that will be making the appointment will be the new Scottish football director, Kramer and Holland. So that's a bit different because I've seen obviously people were slagging off Maxwell and that, but obviously Maxwell's not going to play part in this appointment. It's looking like it's going to be someone different.
Well, I mean, I'm glad to hear that, but I'd still give Mulvaney, Maxwell, Doncaster, the rest of them, I'd still give them blame for the situation we've been in for a number of years now, to be honest, and giving Steve Clarke that contract. So I'm going to assume most of these characters played a part in giving Steve Clarke the contract before the tournament. So in my opinion, then they need to go just as much as Steve Clarke. For me, it was the right time he went as well.
The only thing I would say on that, Robbie, is probably everybody wanted to give him that contract going into the World Cup. But the only thing for me, in retrospect, maybe they could have possibly said a 2-year contract because he's looking towards the sort of European Championships in Britain. Maybe he could have fall to that, but I mean, 4 years is crazy.
I'm pretty sure Graham said the same thing as well about the 2-year contract, and I don't think fans would have minded that as much. But for me, that's now cost the SFA more money, and at a time in football where the SFA and what we hear and don't particularly have the richest funds in the world, I'll say. to give managers 4-year contracts and then let them resign straight after a major tournament is just absolute nonsense, to be honest, and something that we can't do. And I've seen a few people talk about Stephen Naismith now, so will be interesting to see who the next managerial appointment actually is. But it's just been so disappointing. I'm seeing now the players leaving by themselves, going to airports. I think John McGinn was the first one pictured leaving. I was saying this to Michael before the show started. Uruguay have actually done the same thing. They had private flights sorted for the Uruguayan players after the World Cup, and they've cancelled them and made them travel home themselves. So the players are going to be travelling home with quite a lot to think about, to be honest.
I think that Charlie, I think that where we go next is like that's a big question, but like and I know that we were planning to do a show tomorrow night. Obviously, when the news come on, we just had to get a show out as well, to get everybody's reaction on it as well. But I think and I might be thinking like a broken record here, Charlie, but like and I know you've been on the show long enough about, because I'm a big kind of like ambassador for youth football in Scotland as well. But also as well, I know that Reagan was saying about Clemo Holland is at the SFA now. He had a job at Rangers, and I think he was appointed. I can't remember his job title, Rangers, and I know Craig. Craig I used to do a bit of coaching back in the day, and Clemo Holland's a good guy as well. But I'm not being funny, Charlie. But all these people get jobs at the SFA, but what do they actually do? Because I remember a few years ago that was it a Labour guy or a SNP guy got a job at the SFA. He was supposed to go on and make a pathway, and you've never heard of him again. So yeah. But why does other countries can do it and we can't?
I get what you're saying. I think I like to think I know a wee bit about football, but if you were to ask me like, what a lot of these SFA members actually do, I don't think I'd be able to tell you a lot about them. Like, they're there, but some of the decisions have came out, like, to echo what you guys have been saying about the whole 4-year deal. I get it, Steve Clarke obviously left now, but to give him a 4-year deal before the tournament even started was absolutely crazy in my eyes. I don't even think I would have if I was obviously in that power. Don't even think I would have given him a contract before. Okay, if he went on today something decent in the tournament, got to around the 16 or even got out the group stage, I think then you could have discussion. But to give him a contract right before the tournament starts, I just thought it was like a mad decision as well, and like obviously backfired. As I said, as I was saying before, I think I respect Steve Clarke massively for walking away when he could easily had more money in his pocket for just staying for another 4 years. But yeah, I genuinely do not know what half these SFA members do.
I mean, on this point, sorry, Reagan.
Sorry, I just wanted to go on as well and speak about obviously the fact that all these smaller countries have got in as well. I think it makes it even worse because I think there was so much emphasis on Scotland being hated and then everything will be okay. I think we need to go in that game and try and win by 2 or 3 goals at least. And I think the whole, I'm not saying this celebration, but the whole celebration as well was a bit weird to me because we only won 1-0, you know? And I think that's come right back to bite us because at the end of the day, I think if Scotland would have won by 3 or 4 goals, Scotland would have been through, you know? And I think, see, as much as Steve Clarke's done a fantastic job, I don't know if maybe a fresh pair of eyes, maybe somebody just to come in and sort of tell the players that they're good players and they're able to play some great football, because I think sometimes Steve Clarke was too negative. And I think also, I think I said it to you guys the other night. I mean, so some of the guys in Scottish football as well, that he actually doesn't pick as well. Hopefully we can bring in somebody that will look at Scottish football and go, right, who can we bring in? And I mean, instead of bringing in people like Don Hyam, who's never played for Scotland and who's not played at the World Cup, I mean, surely you could have brought in somebody like Stuart Findlay or Stephen Welsh, someone like that who's playing week in, week out, playing really good football and trying to make a very good time for themselves, you know. I just think sometimes Scotland kind of look different places for players, and I totally get it. Like trying to get balance and stuff like that, but Scottish football's a good place to look as well.
I love the point about Stephen.
Sorry, Robbie.
All good. I was just going to say that I love the point about Stephen Welsh, because if you're going to play a game plan against Brazil, playing out for the back, there was only one centre half that didn't even make the squad that played that way last season with Motherwell, and it was Stephen Welsh. He's trying to play a back two, play it around the back with two centre halves that respectfully take both of them, and they have a lot of good qualities, but they don't play that way, and that's not their style, and that showed because we didn't just give away 2 defensive errors, we actually gave away 3 over the course of the 3 games. So Regan, I think you're spot on. No having the
Robbie, I don't know if you've seen the tweet yesterday, but it was Just from Motherwell. It said if Just was Scottish, but because they play for Motherwell, they don't believe that he would play for Scotland, and that's my point as well. That Just is absolutely ripping it up, and I think that possibly that could have been a guy that if he was Scottish, Steve Clarke definitely wouldn't have took. You know?
Aye, no, I would agree with that. And that's where the next manager debate is so interesting, because the main, I suppose, front runner that everybody always talks about when this job comes up, you know, when Clarke does a bad job and people want him to go, is David Moyes. But you're not convincing me that David Moyes is looking at a Scottish game and calling up Stephen Welsh to the national team, because I don't believe that just as much as I don't believe Steve Clarke would have done that. So I'm really not sure what the next manager is or who it's going to be, but we need a bit more bravery in team selections. We need to stop being so lenient and so strict on we're going to pick this team and we're going to play with these players. You need to start trusting the informed players a wee bit more, and we might actually be able to do something at these tournaments.
I mean, you look at Spain, for example. Spain, for the very first time, didn't pick any players from Real Madrid. I mean, could you imagine if somebody said to you, right, Scotland's not going to pick any players from Celtic or Rangers or from the English Premier League? People would laugh at you. But I think we've got some good players at Falkirk, at Motherwell, Hearts. You know, we've got so many good players there that you could be looking at.
And I think this is a good time to bring in Graham, because I remember saying to you, Graham, at the time, and you were busy saying to me on the show, and I think you know what I'm going to say here, Shankland, that he was ripping up with Hearts or in the Scotland squad. He never really got much game time for Scotland. Yeah, he joined Rangers, and he was straight in the starting 11, you know, so... But I'll come back to that point in a minute, Graham. But Mikey saved my bacon because I couldn't remember the guy's name. It was Henry McLeish, remember him? It went into the SFA and maybe fell through the black hole. I'm not sure. But yeah, so what do you make of that point, Graham, that Regan says about, and I've kind of made this point on the show before, right? Because if you don't play for Celtic and Rangers, they're not interested. Is that a bit unfair, me saying that? I mean, because you look at Falkirk, we players in Motherwell, excellent team last season, you know, and you know, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've banged the drum so long about Lawrence Shankland being in that team because he's the best striker Scotland have got. I mean, I don't rate Adams or Dykes. I've said that before. But I think even his use of Shankland this tournament has been crazy. Like the first game, I understood why he played that front two of Adams and Shankland. I got that completely because they played against Bolivia. We looked decent against Bolivia. Okay, they weren't any great shakes, but I thought 4-4-2 against Haiti, completely get that. Then he comes out against Morocco and he plays Adams on his own up front, and you think, right, okay, I kind of get it, but it's not really that adventurous. The way that he set up against Morocco was just weird. That 5-4 formation with absolutely no threat, no Gannon Doak, no Shankland. And he doesn't even bring Shankland on in the end. He brings on Ross Stewart. He doesn't even put Shankland on. And then, against Brazil, when you're up against guys like Gabriel at the back, he put Shankland as a lone striker against that Brazil team. It's like, what are you doing? I don't understand what he was doing with some of these team formations. It just didn't work. But Shankland, for me, is a player that plays on a two. He's not a lone striker. He never has been. You need somebody else to do the running. That's not Lawrence Shankland's game. He's a fantastic striker. He's a goal scorer. But he's not someone that's going to chase after long balls and stuff. That's not his game. His use of Shankland was really weird. But I do think that other players deserve a chance. Stuart Finlay, somebody mentioned it there. I think it's been fantastic for Hearts this season. But we all know that Clarke has his favourites. He's going to pick guys like Grant Hanley, who has been a decent servant. But at this level, for me, he's not good enough. And again, why are we trying to play it for the back against teams like Morocco and Brazil with guys like Grant Hanley and Scott McKenna? That's not what Scotland are good at. I mean, to be honest, I think some of these decisions this World Cup have been absolutely mental. For me, and I said this on the last podcast, the biggest miss for me is Billy Gilmore. Billy Gilmore's a one midfielder that comes and takes the ball off the back. Look at the Morocco game, for example. Not the Morocco game, the Brazil game. Scott McKenna, if he's got Billy Gilmore coming and taking the ball off him, he doesn't make that pass to Robertson. He plays it to Gilmore. Gilmore keeps it, plays it off. We don't lose that goal. I think Billy Gilmore was a huge miss because we had nobody in the middle of the park to actually build up the play, to keep possession. A lot of those midfielders were not good enough. The best player we had in this tournament was Lewis Ferguson. He can hold his head up high. Nobody else can. But I think a big part as well of where Scotland fail, and I've said this before as well, the best players, or most of the best players in Scotland, are foreign. We rely on a lot of foreign talent to come into Scotland and make our league better. That's another thing that I think goes against us as well. I heard somebody else talk about this in a podcast. Should there be a rule that you have to have at least 3 or 4 homegrown players in your squad or in your team? I wouldn't mind that. If it's going to make Scotland better, then fine. But we don't have enough Scottish talent coming through. Finlay Curtis, he takes Finlay Curtis, gives him barely any minutes. He takes Tyler Fletcher, doesn't get on the park at all. So again, I do think when we do have these young talents, play them more. But we don't do that. Ben Gannon Doak, we all love. But again, we're relying on a young laddie to be our biggest threat going forward because we've got nothing else going forward on that out wide. So I think there are a lot of things that Scotland need to do. A new manager's got to come in and he's got to see if he can bring more out of these players and bring in better players. But frankly, some of these players that played at this World Cup and the Euros should be done now because they've done great to get us there, but they've let Scotland down in 3 big tournaments. And for me, there needs to be a lot more done. And we need to bring in a lot more young Scottish talent because I do think too many of the best players in Scotland are foreigners.
I don't agree with that comment saying Ferguson was garbage. I thought Ferguson played really well, to be honest with you guys.
I mean, he was our best player, and it's weird because Angus Gunn conceded 4 and 3, and I'd argue he was our second best player the whole tournament. I thought he stopped a couple of the games with being cricket scores. So, I don't know. It's like I wouldn't say anybody was like world class or brilliant, but Ferguson was at least trying to do something in the midfield. Where again, you do blame Steve Clarke for the tactics because the midfield was all over the place. I mean, McTominay looked so out of place that I've never seen him like that before. And the Scotland shot, it didn't look like he knew what to do any single time the ball got near him. So, there needs to be a whole reshape of everything for Scotland, including the squad. I know Reagan, you were saying there, Elliot Watt, a player I'd love to see playing in the Scotland squad. Aye, a guy, Graham, you're talking about losing Billy Gilmore. We've got a carbon copy that was left in the house in Lennon Miller that I'd argue could go into the Scotland squad and link up to play really well. I think he's got that ability about him. Again, left in the house. So many different things that was so negative about Steve Clarke that eventually did lead to him resigning. And I think you could see that in him after the Morocco and Brazil games and the sort of interviews that he done after the games. Again, if he's going to go back into club football, which obviously we don't know Steve Clarke's plan, the first thing he's going to get asked in any interview he goes to is, why are you being so disrespectful in interviews after the games? Because it was really, really bad, and it put a bad look on us as well. So, he's got an interesting future, I think, Steve Clarke in the game.
I think sorry, Michael, I was just going to say a joke there. I was going to say Burnley is a job that's up. I think Steve Clarke would suit that job. You know,
I think my only criticism of Clarke doing that interview after the game, Charlie, is I don't know. I mean, I know that FIFA's got this rule about interviewing managers right after the game and interviewing assistant managers at half time, but I don't agree with. That's too American for me. But I mean, Stevie Clarke said, no, I'm not speaking the now. I'll give you an interview in 10 minutes or 15 minutes when I've like cooled down a wee bit. But you know, to give an interview and then not to be a bit arrogant. I don't like to use that word. That's the only word that comes to my mind. But I mean, I think Stevie Clarke should have said, no, I'm not doing the interview. I'll come back out and do it in about 10 minutes.
I completely agree. Like, I think his interviews were shocking. Like, but to be fair, I feel like the halftime one, which I agree that shouldn't happen. I feel like, was it not Stephen Naismith who was doing quite a lot of them? I might have only just seen bits of that,
Yeah.
but it seemed like Naismith was doing most of them. And I just thought, after, like, he was all happy and that. Of course, because you win the game and that, you're gonna be happy. But he was like brilliant after when he won, classy when we won and that. But then I get it, you're not going to be happy when you lose. I completely understand his frustration, but the presenters, the journalists have all got a job today, like you. I can't imagine the interviews will take too long, like 2 to 5 minutes. Like, they're not going to take too long. I get it, you want to speak to your players, I get all that kind of stuff, but they've got a job today. They're there for a reason, and they've done a lot of hard work to get there, I can imagine. Just take 2 minutes. And I just thought, we've had a few managers were quite disrespectful. I've seen Marcelo Bielsa. I mean, that's a very weird clip I've seen of him just screaming at the interviewer. I just thought that was really weird. But yeah, Steve Clarke is certainly not covered himself in very much glory when it comes to the World Cup, in my opinion. I thought he was massively disrespectful to loads of interviewers.
And you take somebody like Charlie, like Ellie Barber, who you hear so many good stories about her, how nice she is, how positive a person she is. It's why she's in the position she's in. And Clark's treating her like that during games. I mean, at least Stephen Naismith at half time during these interviews, he knows how to handle himself. He can be composed about it. He can say it how it is. He's got that managerial experience, of course, at club level that we all thought Clarke would have. And there's a way to, you can be angry in a certain way if you're a manager, but I don't think Clarke realised that he's representing a whole nation at a World Cup where a whole generation's not seen in 28 years. There's a certain way to act in these press conferences, and I think Clarke got every single bit of it wrong, and I think he should actually probably apologise to Ellie Barber and stuff for the way he treated them, because it was absolutely shocking, to be honest with you.
How do you think that a lot of people in Scotland will lose a bit of interest in the World Cup? Because I know that if, certain people here at the team down European football, but when they get knocked out of, say, the Champions League and the Conference League, they're not really interested anymore, because the atmosphere when your team was in the World Cup, you just have to look at your shops, shopping centres, buses. I was getting, it was funny, I was getting logs the other day, and even the ferries was kind of like done up with soft tires, and it was brilliant to see. And you had this kind of like feel good factor, but now it's like, oh right, okay, that's it.
I think obviously when your nation's at a World Cup, it's obviously not going to be the greatest, but I'm still enjoying it regardless. I think there's a lot of great nations in there, a lot of, like France, for instance, they're on fire. Like, I'm still enjoying the World Cup, but obviously sometimes people will just be a damper at your nation's out. You've not really got a country to kind of cheer for, but I think at the end of the day, I think the World Cup's still been great regardless. Still a lot of quality teams in that. in the World Cup. So it's still very exciting. But I get what you mean. Obviously, it's just kind of when your country's out, it's like, oh, it's not great. But I'm still enjoying the World Cup regardless. So
Graham, I saw this comment in the chat early on, and I'll try and find it. Is any Englishman scout at the SFA? And I know what they were getting at here, but I don't really care because as long as they deliver for the national team, I don't really care. What are you, so does that mean that Postecoglou's getting the job? People won't be supporting him because he's Australian. That's a lot of nonsense, I know like the rivalry and all that's there, but I mean you look at Thomas Tuchel, manager of England, and you look at different managers at the World Cup not being the same nationality as well,
Yeah, it doesn't matter. When they come into whether it's a club or a country, they want to do their best for that country. So I don't really mind where they're from. I don't think any Englishman, even if he was at Scotland, is going to be doing their damnedest to make sure we don't qualify for anything. So I don't really think it makes that much difference. But I kind of agree with what Robbie and that said as well. I do think the whole SFA and that needs a complete restructure because a lot of these guys they're not good enough. The folk that gave Steve Clarke that 4-year contract, what were you thinking about? Surely you wait till after the World Cup and see how he does. Yes, he's got us to 2 Euros, and as I said before, he gets great respect for that. But surely before the World Cup, you go, right, we'll see how you get on in the tournament. If you go to the last 32, whatever, then that contract's on the table for you. To give him a 4-year deal before the World Cup was mental. Like, nobody expected that. And I think that's why I've got a lot of respect for Clarke. He could have waited a few days. He could have taken stock and then thought, you know what, now I'm gonna resign. But he's done it basically straight after it's been official we got knocked out. And I've got respect for him for that. I think fair play to him for actually saying, do you know what, I'll maybe taking Scotland as far as I can. I've got us to Euros, I've got us to World Cups, but it's time to step aside and let somebody else do this. But I don't understand why they were so quick to give him that 4-year contract before the tournament started. Because they now look really stupid in giving him that.
And
I
it's
mean, I
exactly
don't
what
want
Robbie was.
I don't want to do a Michael Stewart, Michael, because I'll end up getting banned from Hampden. But I do think the SFA need to look at themselves and say, look, there's a clear problem here because at the end of the day, they must have known that something like this might pop up at the end of the tournament. So I don't know if they were trying to do it quickly because they felt like possibly Steve Clarke might end it. And they're thinking like, we better try and back ourselves here. But I think the SFA would need to look at themselves. But I think it was someone on Talksport this morning, Michael, that says the SFA get £20 million for qualifying. So hopefully they can spend that money wisely and bring in a proper manager.
Aye, well, I think like to take it sort of into the full SFA swing, the reason why we've got such a poor TV deal in our country, it's the reason why we've got such poor youth structure in our country, not enough investment into either.
Oh, you
I
get
do
back
think,
and you watch yourself then.
just being honest, I just said it how it is. It's true. The way the whole country and the whole footballing structure has been run by the SFA has been shambolic for years. I mean, you look at other countries' TV deals and the way they're getting broadcasted, nothing compared to what we're getting. And I don't mean that in a good way for Scotland. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely got better, but you look at the Sky deal in particular, it's so poor at times. But the next manager has got some big decisions to make. I want to ask you guys about the next manager then, because I know we've not got long left. I mean, who do you guys want to see? Who do you think's going to be the next Scotland manager, if I had to ask all you?
John McGlynn.
I agree, John McGlynn.
I mean, I'd love
Postecoglou.
Postecoglou. I would love Big Ange. I think that'd be cinema. But if it was maybe if they want to go for another Scottish manager, probably John McGlynn.
What about you, Graham?
I mean, I just think this screams bring back Craig Levein. 460 over again. Bring him back.
Oh, brilliant.
Oh dear.
Nah, I think, to be honest, I think probably the one that does scream out is possibly Colgate. Whether he would take it, whether the SFA would actually go to him and he'd take it, I don't know. But I think you look around Scotland and think, who's available? You're looking at David Moyes. Would David Moyes take it? I mean, I know that they mentioned John McGlynn there. Would a lot of Scotland fans get behind that? I'm not sure. I think it's such a big call. As I said before the show started, the last time we went for him was 2002 with Bertie Vogts, and that failed. If we do go for him again, I don't have an issue with it, but it has to be the right person. It just has to be. They've got to get this right. You know, we've had 7 years of Steve Clarke, so we're going to have to do something a little bit different. It actually starts with the Nations League in September. Those are our next games. So
Yep.
it's going to be interesting. But if we could get Postecoglou, I'd be well behind that completely.
And it's probably
I think, Robbie, when you asked the question about who you want as manager, Postecoglou, the reasons why I'm saying that is you saw what he did with Australia, right? He was up here in Scottish football, and a lot of Celtic fans didn't like what he did as well, walk away, but he knows the game inside out. And also, if you want change within the SFA, and you can kick back sides, because I don't think he's a man that you mess about with.
I think Ange would be a brilliant appointment for Scotland. I think, as you mentioned, what he's got there, any other candidate that's linked with the job is he's got the international experience managing at that level. He knows how to do it. Plus, his style of football is really, really nice to watch. I think with the players we've got as well, it could suit some of our players. You know, I look at the wingers like Ben Gannon-Doak and Finlay Curtis. I think you could see Ange probably get the best out of they two. Be interesting to see how we'd link they two, maybe along Shankland up at major tournaments as well. So there's so many different ideas. I'd put forward John McGlynn as well. I think John McGlynn would probably be a good appointment in my opinion. I don't think a lot of people would be happy with that, but John McGlynn's he's had the last 3 years, probably the best 3 years of his managerial career. He's got so much right. He's done it in the Premiership as well. Some would say he's maybe not got that experience to step up to that level, but I'd argue Clarke back in 2019 never had that experience to step up to the level at the time as well, albeit he had a brilliant job going with Kilmarnock, and that's why he ultimately left. Another name I'd fling into the mix that would be very unpopular actually would be Neil Lennon. Obviously, current Dunfermline manager. I think he could go to Scotland and do a good job as well. I don't think Scotland fans would be very happy if Neil Lennon got announced as the manager, but I think somebody like that could go in and make the difference. And I think Lennon knows how to get a team going as well, so I'd be excited at the prospect of either, to be honest. But I think Ange's the dream appointment.
I mean, to be honest, if he hadn't just taken the Rangers job, you're looking at Derek McInnes. But he's just taken the Rangers job. Or I think it would have been him.
Don't get me wrong, the Scotsmen have put in some absolutely brilliant names on this list, by the way. They've put like Steven Gerrard, they've put Russell Martin, they've put Brendan Rodgers. Some very big names in there.
I can't believe Wilfred Nancy's not on that list.
See, in terms of this, Stephen Naismith, do you think the SFA might say Stephen Naismith show
I think
If they do that, we're just going back for one again. They can't do that.
I could tell you, I think they could seriously get to him for the Nations League games.
really, because
I wouldn't be surprised.
I don't think they're going to get a new manager in the next 2 months, Scotland. I think Stephen Naismith's he'll get this qualifying campaign bookmark this, as they would say. I think Stephen Naismith will be the Scotland manager for the Euros qualifiers.
I can't believe you just put Jim Good. What a managerial appointment, man. You speak about negative football, Jim Goodwin's got that in abundance.
If the SFA gave the job to either Stephen Naismith or Scott Gemmell, then just pack everything away and just go home. It's done.
Scott Gemmell, the guys in about 10 qualifying campaigns and no qualify for anything, but Stephen Naismith's been there, he's done it, he's got some experience there with Clarke. I just think the qualifying campaigns are about 50 days' time. So I don't know if they'll really be looking at trying to get a manager in before then. So I'm going to say Stephen Naismith will be a temporary Scotland manager.
Well, if that's the case, we ain't getting at the Nations League group.
I do feel like there's plenty of time to appoint a new manager, though. You've got
the last thing you want though is you don't want, if Scotland go on the phone to Ange and John McGlynn tomorrow and both of them said no, then I would rather Scotland took their time, because if you rush in and make an appointment with Stephen Naismith, then it would come back and bite us big time.
What a joke.
But I just can't believe it. All that Stephen Presley somehow outlasted Steve Clarke in the managerial job. That's just absolutely baffling. He's got an L1 done. You know what? Get him up. Why not? I actually see he's on the Bet365 list, by the way. 25-1 for Big Presley to take the job. So another name that I think is inexperienced, but it's a manager I've always liked. Barry Ferguson's on the list as well, and I wouldn't want him to get the Scotland job now. But if he had a bit more experience, I'd be a bit more lenient to fling his name in the ring for it. Again, I think you probably put Scott Brown into the same bracket as that. So,
oh no, we don't want
to do that. The problem is, Charlie, I think you're right. I think in 2 months, Scotland would have the ability to go and get a manager, and I think if they took their time, they could get the right appointment. But bar the first 3 names and Moyes, Postecoglou and McGlynn, any other one's not going to get the fan on side, really, to be honest. Fans are going to hate if it's going to be somebody like Naismith.
What about Roberto Martinez? Because he's leaving Portugal.
No chance he's coming to Scotland. Absolutely no chance.
He's got a Scottish wife and Scottish kids, Graham.
You're not getting Roberto Martinez for Scotland. There's no chance of that.
May as well ask Pep.
You may as well just ask Steve Clarke. May as well just ask Steve Clarke to come back. It's no happening. No chance.
What about Gordon Strachan?
Gordon's trying, right? He doesn't even care about Scotland, never mind getting back into manage them.
He's quite good at the Grosvenor Hotel.
Honestly, we're going to end up with Joey Barton at this rate as our new manager. That's how bad it will be.
Oh no, we don't want that.
Well, there you go, Heidi. Get a woman as manager.
I'll be the manager.
I keep saying it, by the way. I never gave the Scotland women's job, but Eva Olid is a sensational women's manager, by the way. She is. I'd genuinely take her at Simon if Craig McLeish wasn't in charge.
Oh, I would definitely take Eva Olid. We'll get Shelley Kerr. I'll probably do the job.
Really? No, she's nice as well.
Well, I mean, you're saying about Shelley Kerr, but was she not the first female in Scotland to manage a university team?
Shelley Kerr.
Was it Edinburgh? Was it Edinburgh Uni or whatever?
She's at Hearts now, isn't she? What about Simo Valakari? Get him in.
You know, Simo wouldn't be the worst shout in the world, but again, I just don't think he'd. You speak about having experience. I just don't think Simo Jinky could step out of that level.
Aye, but he's no leaving St Johnson.
In a year's time, once he's won the league with Hearts, Wout of Rankin will take the Scotland job.
Graham, I don't think you can afford to lose a manager after the
year. I think Graham's on the Belgian beer already.
Wait, it's not Belgium.
I've just seen Steve Cooper's linked with the job, and that's just so many bad ones.
So look, Heidi. Everybody was looking forward to the summer. Got the World Cup. Obviously, we've got the Commonwealth Games coming up in a few weeks' time. Everybody was feeling good and positive, and then you've got Scotland.
I know.
There you go. I think that's. Yeah.
They just let you down. Just let you down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know. Charlie. Where do we go from here? Obviously, we spent the past hour, and we might be talking about it over the next few days and whatever. like it's okay getting a new manager in, but we need to get things in place at kind of like grassroots football, because like we don't want to be having the same conversation in about 2 years' time.
Aye, definitely. There's a lot to. Obviously, the main focus is definitely on like the national men's team and stuff like that. But there's a lot to work on as well at youth level and stuff like that. So, obviously the SFA have obviously got a tough task, but to be fair, they make a lot of things tough for themselves. So there's still a lot to work on. But as I was saying before, for the men's team, they've got plenty of time to take the time, get the appointment right, interview as many as candidates as they can. They've got, as we were talking about, 50 odd days before the Nations League start. Plenty of time to get everything right. But yeah, in the behind the scenes, there's definitely a lot of work to do for the SFA.
Graham, I always talk about outside the box and getting a new manager. Postecoglou for Celtic, nobody heard of him, and everybody was making a fool of his name and all the rest of it. But I think Postecoglou had the last laugh. What about this comment here? Oscar McPhee, Graham?
I would actually rather go with the stuff that Reagan's mentioning off the McPhee. I mean, he was at heart dreadful. I know he's a decent set piece coach, but he's not a manager in a million years. No chance for me.
I mean, that's a crazy stat. 15 tournaments Scott Gemmell is no good. Scotland say, I mean, if he gets the main job, he might as well put the shutters down.
See that comment, that sums up everything that's wrong with what's going on in the SFA right now and what's going on with youth football in this country. That stat right there, that's the problem. The fact that we've let Scott Gemmell take charge of trying to get us into 15 tournaments and he's not been able to get us into a single one. I think that just sums up everything that we need to work on as a country.
I think
the SFA will probably say, do you know what? He's a decent appointment. Let's go for him.
I think if that Motherwell manager was available, we could have got him in, but I mean, no anymore. Better ask you. But I mean, because some of the football he was playing was brilliant.
See, I think the point on Ange, where people obviously loads of people were saying Ange and stuff like that. I just think his wages, I feel like they might be big bucks to be spending. The SFA, I don't know. I believe Steve Clarke was on about 500 grand a year. I believe Ange was in this around about 6 million a year. So I feel like that's a big jump, and yeah, I think Ange would be great, but I don't know if he'd come down to that region of money.
I think the lure of working with Grant Hanley might just swim to take it. To be
that is the two aims. That's why Scott Gemmell might work, because the two aims are you play Grant Hanley, you play Lyndon Dykes, and that's why Clarke had to resign. He was started today neither. So, Charlie, I think you're spot on with Ange. I think the wage might just rule him out. But if the Scotland, if the SFA, had any ambition, then they would fling the money at him and tell him, look, come and do the job for a few years and see how you get on. So,
I don't think Ange would be a guy about money. I mean, I don't think the Australia job would be a lot of money, to be honest with you guys.
The thing is with Angelo, you need to give him time because he only wins thing in his second try, so we need to just
I know.
Just give him a bit of time to settle in.
I know Andy's next big ambition is to manage Greece, so I don't know if he's holding it for that job, but because I know he's Australian, but he's from Greece, so I think that's
he is the one that we want. Boom boom.
Well done. Yeah.
See, if we do end up with Moyes, though, I want to ask you quickly. Do you know? Think he is too similar to Clarke in a lot of ways. We're all saying we want David Moyes, but I'm not convinced he's going to be looking at the Scottish Premiership and picking out Stephen Welsh or picking out Elliot Watt or picking out these players that might actually make a difference.
I mean, Robbie, I think you're spot on there. Andy's totally rude to reporters as well. Don't you remember that one when he was the manager? The poor lassie doesn't know. She doesn't know where to look. But I don't know if if David Moyes would be the appointment, because I think as much as he's been at the top level, but David Moyes is all he knows, sort of trying to set up a low block and stuff like that. It's not kind of adventurous football either. It's not like
Surely Alex Ferguson's got a few years left in the tank.
I think you hear the same things about David Moyes as you've heard about Steve Clarke, so I feel like that's the kind of worrying thing. Like, you've just seen, like, Everton, they were pretty decent for most of the season, but then went and bottled it when it came to getting to the European place, and I just feel like it's quite similar to what we've had with Steve Clarke. That would be why I would kind of steer away from David Moyes.
I think even though I don't think Ange would take it, I think it's worth the SFA having that conversation with him to say, would you be interested? Because at least then, you know, if he'd be interested in talking, then maybe he could try and find a way to get him in. Because I just think Postecoglou would give something to Scotland completely different, a different philosophy, a different style of football, a different way of thinking. I think it's a conversation that has to be had in the first instance, and then see what happens after that. I don't think he would take it, but I think you've got to have the conversation.
I would love to see Neil McCann and Tom English take it. You know what I mean? They're a good partnership. They two.
No, you want big Ange and Roy Keane. That's what it's really about. Somebody just to stir out a dressing room when things are going rough.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think like Graham's point is spot on. You need to have a conversation with Postecoglou, but I think the reason why I'm saying that, Robbie, is there's no kind of like any outstanding candidates at the moment. Maybe if I go for a long walk, I might not come back. But if I go for a long walk, I might think of names. But the only reasons why I'm saying Postecoglou is he'll get things done at the SFA as well. It's not just about managing Scotland. It's about, you know, managing kind of like youth development, under 19s, and everything that we don't see kind of like day to day.
Well, it's the reason why I thought Clarke would have stayed on, because you're looking at the managerial shortlist now, and we might end up getting N.A. Smith part-time for the Nations League, because what other choice do we have if Postecoglou says no? Then
sorry, Robbie, I'm just going to say, bookmark at that. Stephen Naismith will be the Scotland manager for the Euro campaign.
I can't do that.
No, I think in a realistic scenario, if Ange says no, which, look, it's probably more likely than no, you probably are going to need to get an interim for the Nations League, or the first Nations League spot anyway, because I don't even see David Moyes wanting to leave Everton right now, to be honest with you, so I'm not fully sure he'd even take the job. So I think whoever it's going to be, you're right, Michael, look, there needs to be a lot of structure change around everybody in the SFA, and that's why I said what I said earlier about Maxwell and Doncaster and all the rest of it, because it's not been good enough for years, and Scotland as a whole, and football-wise anyway, is really no benefiting for what we're going through right now. So, there needs to be a lot of time spent in making this the perfect appointment, and hopefully having another crack, because look, the expectation's completely different to when Steve Clarke took the job now. Steve Clarke's expectation was try and build a bit of consistency with the Scotland team, try and get them back for basically being in the slumps for so many years, and he's managed to do that. Now the manager expectation is you've got to get us at the group stage at a major tournament, no less. You've got to get us there, and we've got to be competing in the knockout. So the expectation is built for a manager like Postecoglou to come in and hopefully try and make that work.
And I don't think I'm wrong in saying as well, I think also there's going to be a bit of style about them as well, because I'm a bit fed up of seeing boring football these days. I want to see be entertained, to be honest.
I've heard enough. Give me Craig McLeish 4-2-3-1 tiki-taka ball at the Scotland job. That's what it's all about. No, but you're right. But they want a bit of style, especially in press conferences and that as well. You hear the way Ange conducts himself during games, and the way he speaks during his punditry work. He just seems like a really genuine guy as well. So I think if you're the SFA, you're flying the handbags at getting Postecoglou in. Do I see them doing that? I don't, to be honest, but that would be the dream.
And I know Ange is
There you
still
go.
sorry, Michael, I'm just want to say that I know that Ange is still based in the UK as well. So that's another thing for Scotland as well to think about.
There you go. So, before we go, I would just like to say thanks to everyone. It's been on the show in the last couple of weeks. Thanks to everybody in the background as well. And thanks to Robbie, and thanks to Alex, thanks to Reagan as well. Thanks to everybody. It's What's the Show. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the channel. We'll be back in late July, early August for the new football season, as if we haven't been away as well. And hopefully we'll have Betty Vokes back in place for the Nations League. It'll be nice to see Betty Vokes in the dugout. By the way, I'm only kicking on because in case anybody says, who's he? As well. Duncan Ferguson. Oh, there you go. There you go. I think he's going to BBC. But anyway, let's see. Thanks to everybody. It is come on to you. Thanks to Graham. Thanks to Heidi. Thanks to Charlie. Thanks to Reagan. Thanks to Robbie. And big thanks to everybody. It's watching the show. Do subscribe to the channel, and we'll be back soon here on the Scottish Football Zone.
You're watching the Scottish Football Zone with all the build-up and reactions.